The PlayStation 5 Pro has finally been announced, and nobody cares. What we're going to talk about in this video is not necessarily go over the announcement of the PS5. We're going to talk about why nobody wants the PS5, more so the PlayStation 5 Pro. That includes myself, because now that the announcement's finally dropped, which I've been waiting for honestly a very long time, I'm pretty disappointed in it. And at this point, I'm just going to go for the base model, because there's just no reason to get the Pro. Before I get ahead of myself, as I often do, let's go ahead and dive into some of the specific reasons why me and I think most people, based on the initial reception of the announcement, why nobody seems to care about the PS5 Pro. So for the longest time, there was a rumor that the PS5 Pro was going to drop in 2024. We finally got that confirmation. I believe it's supposed to drop in another month or so. Based on the time of recording this video, it is September 14th. So I think it's supposed to drop next month in October, basically a month, and nobody cares. And there's a few reasons for that why I want to say, like, for me personally, but I'm pretty sure for other people, why there's just no reason. And if you just look on social media, primarily X, I'm pretty sure you'll find some reasons, like, flat out as to why a lot of people are saying, like, yeah, the PS5 Pro is literally no reason to get it. So the main reason, this goes for myself at least, it feels very unnecessary. From the look of it, which hasn't changed from the base model, hardware upgrades, which isn't really that big of a deal. Even if there are notable upgrades and like different speeds, whether it's the GPU, the CPU, whatnot, it's probably not going to be very noticeable with different games, especially with Sparking Zero's about to drop. Streaming speeds for streaming services, where the case may be, is probably not going to be for your regular average gamer, or probably not going to be that notable. It just feels very unnecessary. But another angle to look at it is the PlayStation 5, the base model PS5, it feels like it's still in its prime. For the first maybe 2 or 3 years after the PS5 dropped, nobody was really talking about it. Let me put it to you this way. When you look at social media, let's say like TikTok, and you look at those POV videos of girls who would be like, when your man wants a new game for his PS4 or his PS5, wherever the case was, long after the PS5 had dropped, you were still getting videos of girls and even some guys referencing the PS4. They weren't even really talking about the PS5 yet. There are a couple reasons for that. One, the PS5 was legitimately hard to get to because pandemic, supply chain issues, which we're still recovering from, all that stuff. But also because even when the base model PS5 came out, while there was still a good amount of hype around it, not too many people felt the need to get it. So even though people were kind of playing around, whether it was girls talking about they man or, guys talking about themselves, they homeboys, and, playing with them online and stuff like that, there was still very much a consistent rhetoric of people not paying as much attention to the PS5 when they had their PS4. I'm one of those people. I'm still rocking my PS4 Pro. I really don't care. Honestly, the only reason I'm even going to get the 5, I'm going to make more of an effort to get the 5 at this point, is because I hate how far behind I am on Star Wars, Black Myth Wukong, and I think Tsushima. Is it Legend of Tsushima? I think it is. I think that one's on PS4, so I can probably get around that. But Sparking Zero is going to be only on PS5. So now we have like legitimate heavy hitters exclusives that are making it so like I have to get the 5 at this point. Because I ain't finna look at no YouTube reviews and thoughts and anything on TikTok, and I ain't played these games yet. I try to avoid that at all costs. I have to, but if I had it my way, I wouldn't even bother upgrading my PS4 at this point. There's no reason. From the videos I watch on the streaming services to the games themselves, there's just no reason. I'm just now barely getting into Apex, barely getting into Fortnite, and I like it, and everything runs smoothly. So there's just no reason. Literally the only reason is because Sony is just now making like flagship games where you have to get the 5 to enjoy them. Otherwise, I wouldn't even bother getting it. So now you have that type of effect passing on to the PS5 Pro, where a good amount of guys may have, or even gals, have the PS5, the base model, and now it's like, now you have the PS5 Pro. Not much is different from it hardware wise, which for me personally was the main thing I was looking forward to. I was looking forward to an all black one or matte black, shiny black. I know you can get like different colors or covers with it, but it was like I was kind of waiting to see if they're going to be a little more creative with that. That was a total letdown. The hardware specs, I really didn't care to look because again, my PS4 is rocking just fine. I'm pretty sure the PS5 is going to rock just fine when I get it. So I really don't care about the PS5 Pro. So it's a few different angles for me personally, and I think other people. But when it comes down to it, it just feels like a very unnecessary upgrade, which goes to the second point, which I basically already addressed, which is the lack of meaningful improvements. People are hesitant because it doesn't seem to be meaningful set of upgrades made, primarily, of course, to the hardware of the console, yet they're demanding $200 to $300 more for the PS5 Pro over the base model PS5. And the PS5 base model is already considered overpriced like a mug. And one of the details about the PS5 that has rubbed me the wrong way ever since its release, primarily ever since it's been out for like 2 years, like once it hit the 2-year mark, the price has never dropped, not once. I'm not gonna lie, I've been waiting for that. That's another thing I've been waiting to see if I would get it. But I think when it dropped, it was still like $500 and it's still there after 4 years, almost 5 years. It's nuts. And it's like, why is the price not depreciating? Now, I know on the business side, they're probably waiting to recoup some of their money that they invested to make the console because, again, supply chain issues. But it's like, bro, we're 4 years deep. I don't think this base model price has dropped at all. Now you have a pro model that's not very different aesthetically nor in functionality to the base model, and you're demanding $200 to $300 more. You're nuts. You're nuts. I'm a PlayStation baby. I've had pretty much every PlayStation that's ever come out. Thank you, mama. I've had basically every PlayStation that's ever come out. I had the 360, the Xbox 360. I think it was the only Xbox I ever had. That's when I knew I didn't really care for Xbox. PlayStation has been my thing. I am a PlayStation baby. I do not care about getting the Pro, and I barely care about getting about the 5. I would not even get the 5 if I didn't feel like I had to, especially when you look at the supposed upgrades. So it's like, it doesn't seem like juice worth the squeeze. You know, the upgrades are worth the cost. Then you just see the face value price and it's like, are you nuts? I'm sorry. Even the biggest gamers are like $800 for a PS5 Pro. No, that is crazy. And the upgrades don't justify it. But even if the upgrades did justify it, or at least were somewhat notable, I'm sorry, $800. Like even $1,000 for a smartphone is already crazy. And I mean, we then broke that rule. It's crazy. It just doesn't seem necessary, which of course was the third point, the price point. Why? I don't think even Xbox has hit a price this high. I don't think even this might be the most expensive gaming console ever. I'm gonna double check this when I edit the video, but this might be the most expensive gaming console, but at the same time, the least valuable, at least, you know, for someone that doesn't have it right in front of me and isn't going over the specs. Just off the top of my head, this is probably the most expensive gaming console ever, but also the least valuable, especially when you look at the fact that it's one of those mid-generation upgrades. You know, God forbid I don't think they will, because we haven't heard of it, but you know, if they were to follow like the PlayStation 3 behavior, they had the Pro, they had the Slim, of course they had the base model. I think there was at least one other model, you know, like if they were to follow that behavior, but I don't think they're gonna do that, because we would have, you know, heard something about it by now. $800, not including tax. Then you had to throw in, like, at least for me, because again, my main motivation is some of the major flagship games and big games that have already dropped. Like I've heard that Wukong is great. Sparking Zero is about to drop the same day that Daima drops. Dragon Ball Daima drops. Ghost of Tsushima. I gotta catch up. I know they're older games, but I still gotta catch up on the new trilogy of the Tomb Raider games. I only played the first one. Still gotta play the second ones in the new trilogy. All these games are gonna be expensive in themselves, and even the price of games are getting higher. Like it was bad enough at one point when games were like $50, $60. Have we hit the $100 price point for the actual games? You know what? That might be something else I need to talk about in different videos, how gaming all around is just getting up there. But PS5 Pro, just the price point itself, way too high. Even if, again, the upgrades justified it, the price is way too high. No one in their right mind would think $800 for a gaming system of any kind would actually be worth it. It just makes it that much more unappealing to the general public. The last thing I want to talk about, and I think this, now, before I go into this, I made a video going over the modern business model that a lot of companies seem to be following. A lot of companies seem to be following in different ways. They're following a subscription-based format, which does not only apply to your streaming services and like your PlayStation Plus and all that stuff, not just those that are blatantly subscription-based, but I think they're even applying it indirectly. And this is where the PlayStation 5, Xbox, iPhones, Android, I think this is where those devices, they still managed to follow that model and probably have longer since the actual subscription model, like the monthly or annual charges, business model has like really blown up since, we're leaning more into the digital age. Because whether it's the iPhone, the PlayStation 5, where the case is, you can comfortably, like with me, the PlayStation 4, you can comfortably be a generation behind the latest and greatest. For the iPhone, you can be 2 to 3 generations behind the latest and greatest model and be perfectly comfortable. But whether your device breaks, you damage it, the hardware can't handle the processing power of the software, like it doesn't have the processing power required to run certain software, or you just want to upgrade, you can wait 2 to 3 generations, depending on what device you're talking about. But as long as you stick to that brand, as long as there's no break in brand loyalty, like say to Apple, the company can kind of expect you to come back 2, 3, 4 years later. That in a version, at least in my head canon, seems to be somewhat of a subscription-based business model. Now, of course, that's just brand loyalty. That's pretty much the epitome of the definition of brand loyalty. Depending, maybe just another way to look at it, but I think you can look at that as another version of like subscription. Like they not only make you subscribe to the software like Apple Music, Spotify, where the case is, but even if you say Apple in particular, you need to have an Apple device to subscribe to Apple Music. I don't think you can have an Android device and use it. I don't believe so. And if you can, that might I think I take that back. I think you can have Apple Music on non-Apple devices. The issue is that a lot of people are upset that both Android and Apple phone users both have to pay for it. A lot of people have said, if I have an Apple iPhone, there's no reason I should have to pay for Apple Music. Hey, maybe that's another thing I can talk about. That's neither here nor there. My main thing being, these companies are doing whatever it takes to get us to recycle more and more of our money back into that brand. And when you look at companies such as Sony with their game systems, Microsoft with Xbox, and they have those intermediate flagship models, it creates a certain level of fatigue because you may be the first one to jump at a base model of the PS4, PS5, but now another year or two rolls past. Well, before it's probably more so 2 or 3 years. Then a Slim came out, the Pro came out, but now the PS5 has been out for a few years. Now you have the PS5 Pro. So you have these intermediate things. You kind of just get sick of it quicker because it gets easy to overlook it. It gets easy to get complacent with what you already have and to have that feeling of, we literally just got this exact same device. There's nothing drastically different. Why are you guys putting this stuff out? To the point where, and I said this about the iPhone, I feel like I just got my 13 Pro Max. Maybe it's been longer, but I feel like I just got it maybe a year or two ago. And yet we're already on the verge of the release of the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro, which to me triggers that we're already on the edge of the release of the 17 probably next year. As far as I'm concerned, I feel 4 generations behind. Y'all need to slow down. There is no reason for y'all to be pumping stuff out this quickly. But of course, there are business reasons, back-end reasons, whether we know it or not, whether we can piece it together or not, as to why, these companies are doing this. But it's getting more and more blatant and adamant with these different fan bases and groups that subscribe to certain brands and are loyal to certain brands. We're getting sick and tired of having to keep up with it. Even the Samsung Galaxy is not even immune. The base model, the 24 Plus and the 24 Plus Ultra, same thing. Those ranges from the same generation, but it ranges from a few different things. And then of course you have different features that are locked into only certain models or certain tiers and all that stuff, which only makes it more exhausting because it's more expensive and you may want it, but don't need it. You may need it, but don't want it. It becomes a whole thing. I think we've reached a point where tech is actually becoming somewhat mentally overwhelming to keep up with, for whatever your reason may be. Those are just a few of the reasons why personally I don't plan on grabbing the personal or the PlayStation 5 Pro. And I think a lot of other people relate to this as well. It just doesn't seem necessary. Even as someone who doesn't have the base model PS5 yet, it truly feels like the PS5 it still doesn't even feel like the PS5 is all the way necessary. The PS5 Pro truly, or rather the PS4, truly feels like it still could do what most people need and want it to do. Aside from maybe like graphics, graphic rendering and stuff like that, it feels like could do the job just fine, and most people are going to be satisfied. At least, you know, speaking for myself. But then you have the PS5, and it's like, okay, it's a little something extra. Now you're bending on arms because of the exclusives. But now the PS5 Pro, and it's like, well, the PS5 base model kind of feels like it's just now getting its own real bubble in pop culture amongst celebrities, amongst your regular everyday gamers, even your gaming influencers, all that stuff. I would say over the last year and a half, it feels like it's just now getting its own real space. And now you're hitting us up the head with the upgrade that's not really an upgrade. It just doesn't make sense to me. That's just my opinion on it.